before we really get into this review, let's do a little bit of an abstract for those of you that are trying to figure out if you want to play this game or if it's not really for you. So let's go with a little bit of a spoiler-free introduction. A lot of people say Silent Hill 2 is the scariest game ever made, but I would compare it more so to a melancholic dream.
I hope you find him.
Yeah, you too.
Silent Hill 3, on the other hand, is a straight-up nightmare. This game is all about style over substance. There is no mechanical depth. It's a virtual haunted house that you walk through. A walking sim with really shitty combat and hit or miss puzzles. But the narrative is amazing. Tons of small optional details are there for you to find, and there's crazy Easter eggs. It's like if Snake Eater had a really shitty core gameplay loop, but the atmosphere and the cool quirks and details, the guard shacks, the ladder, were all still there. Also, the soundtrack is fire. So if you're looking more so for a game that's more about narrative, atmosphere, and vibes, this is the one for you. If you want something with really cool survival horror mechanics that challenge you in terms of gameplay, you should probably play Resident Evil.
Are you still following me?
Alright, so let's talk about the gameplay, what you're actually going to be doing when you're picking up this Scarefest. The combat is just pot shots between you and an enemy. It's mind-numbing. The horror comes from the environment, not the enemies, aside from very specific set pieces and sections, but the majority of the time it's just going to be you and the enemy taking turns doing damage. The puzzles can be great or they can be terrible. I like logic puzzles like the hairdryer puzzle in the sewer, where you find this hairdryer and you don't know what to do with it, and this whole monster keeps getting alluded to. You get to a point where there's a bridge and Heather will tell you she has a bad feeling about it, and then you need to put two and two together to electrocute the monster. But then you have puzzles like the fire painting in the Hilltop Center, which are a little bit obtuse, because usually when you have to combine things in a game, it makes sense that they would be things that would be combined. However, when you have 3 items, and you don't know that you need to combine more than 2 and the game doesn't make that clear to you, you can be there for a long time scratching your head, or in my case, looking up a guide. The best part of the gameplay is the choice-related out-of-the-box gameplay sections, but I want to talk about that more in a bit, because I have a lot to say on that.
You don't have to feel responsible. I know it's not your fault.
Silent Hill 3 is a coming-of-age story where everyone projects desired roles onto Heather. For example, the main antagonist and leader of this evil cult, Claudia, wants Heather to be this kind of saint-god figure, to give birth to this deity that'll destroy the world, and wants, Heather to play into the role of a martyr. Douglas is projecting his failures as a parent onto Heather. He messed up with his own son, so now he's trying to take care of Heather and be benevolent to her. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but he does project a lot of his own issues onto her still, to the point where she makes a note of it later on.
Boo!
Heather shakes off these projected expectations, goes through her struggles throughout the game, and eventually comes out as her own woman. Depending on the ending you get, that is. It's a tale of revenge and the destructive consequences of it. This has been tried many times, before and after, but Silent Hill 3 does it really well. The main antagonist, Claudia, is actually pretty good. She's presented as this really weird, detached from reality type of person. She has no eyebrows, she doesn't wear any shoes, she looks really creepy. And at first she's a little bit of a nuisance, just in the background of all the horrific things that you're seeing. But as you learn that she's using Heather's powers to manifest all this crazy shit, and even go so far as to kill Heather's father in order to instigate hatred within her to make her a better birthplace for God, Claudia becomes a really center stage character. Even side antagonists are directly related to Claudia. You have Vincent, who's my boy and one of my most favorite Silent Hill characters, and drops the coldest Silent Hill line ever.
Don't stand there looking so smug. You're the worst person in this room. You come here and enjoy spilling their blood and listening to them cry out. You feel excited when you step on them, snuff out their lives.
Are you talking about the monsters?
Monsters? Ah, they look like monsters to you?
Oh no.
Don't worry. It's just a joke.
Vincent is more of the conniving, scheming, side kind of bad guy. A Huey Emmerich, pretending to be on your side while still pursuing his own goals type of enemy. Then you have Leonard, a bipolar monster, who is Claudia's father. It all traces back to Claudia. All the bad things that happen in this game happen because of her, and she moves the plot forward. That is a very good antagonist right there. But having a good antagonist, while that's awesome, it's amazing to also have a crazy good protagonist. Now, Heather has a 30-inch cock and balls that weigh 80 pounds.
Who's that Pokemon?
She starts the game freaked out, however, she goes into sicko mode really fucking fast, killing the monsters, making quips, and probably being the bravest Silent Hill character in the franchise.
Forget it. This is way too gross. Who would even think of doing something so disgusting?
She takes all of this head on and wins every time, to the point where even though you're still terrified because this is Silent Hill 3 and it is, in my opinion, the scariest game ever made, like I would literally play this game and after I was done playing, I'd be like looking up my shoulder as I go up the stairs in the dark, running into my room and closing my door, just because it causes this sense of unease. But we'll talk about that more in a bit. The point is, Heather's bravery and even confidence in the face of everything you're facing makes her instantly lovable because she's just so fucking cool. And seeing her go through this story, go through losing her father, which is amazingly acted by the way, even with the awkward voice acting and voice lines of the time, it's still a scene that got me invested in what was going on. The entire section in the apartment after Harry dies, and you get to go around and you have this crazy soundtrack playing, it's really hype and really makes you feel like you're prepping on a journey to get back at those who wronged you. The apartment section, as well as the rest of the game, also do the thing that a lot of old school horror games used to do, where you can click on random things and you'll get your protagonist's thoughts. Heather's thoughts are always interesting. She always has a quip or something cool to say, and it's always just a joy to go around and click on random things because I'm curious as to see, what does Heather think about this? She's an interesting, cool protagonist that I love to play as. Like, she made the game for me. Silent Hill 3 is uniquely scary in a way that a lot of games aren't, because it makes horror out of the mundane. So the starter area of the mall sets this tone for it, because it's a space that most of us are really familiar with that slowly gets contorted into a space that we no longer recognize or feel welcome in. How many times as a kid were you walking around the mall and occasionally an employee would open up one of the doors leading into the hallways and you'd get a glimpse of this whole other world behind the mall that you know. This game plays on that to the extreme. The subway level after the mall kind of serves as a litmus test for obtuse Silent Hill gameplay. If you're not used to Silent Hill, or if you don't have the patience for all the weird shenanigans and bullshit this game is going to throw at you, you probably won't make it past the subway level. Still, it's really cool and has some unique scares and some really niche details. Like if you read a certain book, it causes a certain jump scare, making it specific to that playthrough because of the choice you made. Again, we'll talk about that a little later, but that's really cool. The sewer section is scary as hell. With all these noises, the plain gray like hallways and rooms, it feels really oppressive, and it's like a whole descent. You start off in a mall, go to the subway, and you keep on going deeper and deeper, and it feels like you're suffocating. And the game does a really good job of making sure you feel like that even after you're done playing. The construction area is short and sweet. It's like a good transition from the sewer to the hilltop center. The hilltop center is really fucking scary, with a lot of jump scares, some obtuse puzzles, but really unique, kind of claustrophobic. Again, a space that you probably are familiar with like office spaces and apartments, but contorted and made into something that's no longer normal or welcoming. Very like one of those liminal space pictures personified in a game. But the scariest area would have to be Brookhaven Hospital. Hospitals are already pretty creepy, Silent Hill's done this before, but the otherworld transition and Leonard and this other serial killer being omnipresent, threats in the back of your mind are really cool. And it really feels like just a full-on gore and rust fest. This is like the most Silent Hill area in the game. Then you get to the amusement park area, which is a lot shorter, and it's more so about showing Heather's growth through Douglas and the doppelganger fight, which is actually pretty cool, despite, again, being just a slog fest of you hit them, they hit you type of thing. But then the final area is a slog. However, it has a lot of cool sections, which ties into the conclusion and what we're going to be talking about as the main point of this video. The confession chamber, the Claudia choice section, and maybe the final boss, which isn't too important to what we're about to talk about, but is still worth mentioning because there's some depth there actually. Like it's a real fight. You know what? Yeah, let's take a second to talk about the final boss. You can go up close to it, but it'll do these like really powerful swing attacks, but then if you go far away, it starts doing these like fire attacks. There's times where you need to hit and there's times where you need to run. And it's really cool. It's not like a good boss fight by any means, but it's a good Silent Hill boss fight, if that makes any sense. But yeah, anyways.
Claudia!
I feel the best parts about this game are the choice sections and narrative set pieces. The confession, the end there with Claudia, where you need to, use a certain item to vomit up the fetus instead of, outright killing her. And then the apartment section again, where you go around and there's just so much little details around there and things to learn about the characters. And it's because of that I think Silent Hill should have gotten the Telltale format, where it's all walking, choices, and set pieces. This game is just a virtual haunted house anyway. If anything, the gamey bits distract from the atmosphere and the story. Nothing ruins the atmosphere, like just, shooting a shotgun into an enemy 5 times to put them down while they do nothing. That kind of stuff sucks. So evolve Silent Hill by removing the locked door fuckfest and making it a much more linear, narrative-driven, choose-your-own-adventure type of deal. And I feel like some of that's already in here. Again, with those sections that I mentioned. With the confession booth, I thought the whole deal was like, okay, the game's been telling me revenge is bad, so I forgave the person in the confession booth. But then it turns out you're not supposed to forgive them. And then I thought the choice with Claudia was going to be a lot cooler with multiple endings, but it turns out you can just get a death animation if you don't figure out that puzzle piece. But if these sections were actually more so tied into the story, and you made choices that changed the game and the way it evolves, again, like a Telltale game, I feel like Silent Hill would feel a lot more at home. being the type of quasi-Resident Evil clone that it started off as, made sense for the time. But if these games are going to be made in the future, I think they need to change up a little bit and play more so into their strengths. Become that virtual haunted house and spice it up with these choices and set pieces and put all your focus on them. Because when I play Silent Hill 3, I'm there for Heather, I'm there for the really cool, unique, choice-based gameplay segments and the little details that I can find, and I'm there for the atmosphere. I'm not here for the combat, I'm not here for the really bad puzzles. So, yeah, what do you guys think? I know there's a lot of Silent Hill fans that are like, ooh, but the combat and the puzzles add to the horror, and if you think like that, by all means, let me know down below. But what do you guys think about that, about Silent Hill 3? For those of you that are gonna pick up this game and play it now, are you excited for it? For those of you that have played this game, what do you think of my interpretation of it? And do you think Silent Hill would work in a Telltale format? Maybe not exactly how Telltale does it, but something along those lines. All I know is that I refrain from picking up this game and playing through it again because I don't want to deal with locked doors, I don't want to deal with that combat, and I'm also a little bit of a bitch and don't like getting scared. Anyways, this has been Puskin, over and out.